Meeting number 35 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. Pursuant to the committee's motion adopted on Friday, February 5th of this year, the committee is meeting to study all aspects of COVID-19 spending, programs, and related monetary policy. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th, and therefore members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website, and people should realize that the entirety of the committee is not visual at all times, just the person speaking. And I'd ask participants if they'd refrain from taking screenshots on your screen. That's against parliamentary rules as well. Just for I go to witnesses, just before for committee members, on Thursday, I had hoped we'd be able to do committee business as well as the panels, but we're going to get disrupted by votes now. So those meetings will have to be fairly tight. So what I'm suggesting is that we do a steering committee meeting on Monday evening. I believe that time is still available, Mr. Clerk. And on the 27th, just to remind folks, we'll have the Governor of the Bank of Canada for 1 hour and the Parliamentary Budget Officer for 1 hour. Usually we have them for an hour and a half, but due to Zoom time restrictions, we can't get a regular 3 hours, and we're going to have to go back to 2. So that's the situation at the moment. Are any complaints about that suggestion? Okay, then we will turn to witnesses, and we'll start with and witnesses could hold their remarks to about 5 minutes. We'll start with the Canadian Federation of Students, Nicole Briones, National Deputy Chair. Welcome, Nicole. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the committee for inviting the Canadian Federation of Students to speak on this issue. I want to start out by acknowledging the privilege that comes with addressing you today, as I ask you to join in paying respects to the original caretakers of the land that I reside in so-called Pickering, Ontario, who are the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississauga of the Credit Peoples. To share a bit of context, the Canadian Federation of Students is the oldest and largest student organization in Canada. We represent more than 530,000 students across the country, and our membership includes both domestic and international students at the college, undergraduate, and graduate levels, including full and part-time students. I want to emphasize how proud I am of the student leaders who for over a year have been tirelessly lobbying for improved support, from parliamentary petitions signed by nearly 10,000 Canadians to a federal lobby week dedicated to a just recovery for students. We've been calling on our elected officials for adequate financial support. This pandemic has proven to be a struggle across sectors. As classes shifted online and work became even more precarious, we continue to see students experiencing new and enhanced challenges to accessing post-secondary education. And so while we appreciate the more than $9 billion student investment made last April, we want to address the ongoing shortfalls experienced by students and the PSC sector as a whole. To date, as reported yesterday within Budget 2021, more than $2 billion remains unspent. Instead, students have received a failed $912 million Canada Student Service grant, inaccessible exclusion criteria for centralized financial relief supports, and a 6-month moratorium on federal student loans that ended in October of 2020. In fact, students spend weeks fighting for the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, only to receive less funding support and to have it endure less than half of the pandemic. Therefore, our first recommendation is to uphold commitments to students and graduates by allocating the remainder of unused funds to expand the current and any future financial relief programs to include every domestic and international student and recent graduate. Alongside this, students need an investment in accessible mental health supports that are adequately funded and staffed to address the very real threat of a youth mental health crisis. As youth unemployment hovers around 20%, following a record-breaking 29% in May of 2020, students need a commitment from their elected officials to lay the foundation for a stable future. And while the Canada Summer Jobs Program holds value in providing youth opportunities for employment, it excludes international students and those over the age of 30. Amidst ever-changing familial and personal situations, relief for every person living in this country needs to be readily available without the stipulation and added barrier of productivity demanded only of young people in this challenging time. Budget 2021 also promises to continue the doubling of the Canada Student Grants Program for an additional 2 years, which will assist many students with continuing their studies into the next academic year. Alongside this, we need to see a focus on more permanent measures for low-income students and sustainable investments into the post-secondary education sector. Our PSC system has been increasingly underfunded since the late 1970s and now faces extreme precarity, as we've seen in recent events with the collapse of Laurentian University in Ontario. Therefore, our second recommendation is to invest in the targeted funding of federal grants with the intention to move to a universal framework that matches 50% of student tuition costs in each province and territory. Canada is one of the only G7 countries without a federal post-secondary education act. To stay competitive on a global scale and continue to attract and retain talent within this country, our government needs to be investing in the education sector to see large-scale advancement. In order to ensure that money is being effectively spent, we need a holistic approach to understanding the impacts of this pandemic. As part of this process, the PBO has been tasked on the Federation's behalf with producing estimates and cost frameworks for the short and long-term grant matching program, federal student debt elimination strategies, and annual program values to ensure investment adjustments with enrollment growth and institutional costs. Yesterday's budget also waives the accrual of interest on student loans for the next 2 years and increased the income repayment threshold for borrowers living alone to $40,000. This is a step in the right direction, but our third recommendation is to listen to student calls for the reintroduction of moratoriums until at least December of 2021, implement a stopgap urgent loan forgiveness program, and permanently eliminate interest on student loans. Debt creates economic drag and causes students to delay making large purchases, life choices, and actually reverses the positive upward mobility associated with pursuing a post-secondary degree. Now more than ever, the PSC sector is going to be critical in advancing our country forward. Reskilling will be key to upkeep with the technological and virtual shift we've seen this past year, as well as prepare us for the parallel need for a greener economy. And a just social and economic recovery from COVID-19, student and post-secondary issue prioritization will be critical in rebuilding Canada. The Canadian Federation of Students appreciates being a part of this consultation to address these needs, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Turning then to the Canadian Labour Congress, no stranger to the committee, Hassan Yousaf and Chris Roberts. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair and committee members, for the opportunity, of course, to present to you today. Canadian Labour Congress, as most of you know, is the largest central labour body in the country. It brings together some 50 national, international unions in Canada, as well as some 12 provincial territorial federations of labour, along with 100 labour councils across the country. The CLC advocates on national issues on behalf of some 3 million workers, men and women, from coast to coast. The corona pandemic and the economic shutdown continue to devastate hundreds and thousands of working people's lives. Yesterday's budget, I think, brings important relief for working people hard hit by the pandemic. It does so in several ways. First, the extension of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy will continue to support employment into the fall of 2021. Second, the Canada Recovery Hiring Program will promote job creation, support unemployed workers seeking additional hours of work in the second half of this year. We hope the hiring program is further refined to provide targeted support for workers who are often overlooked in a job recovery. These include displaced workers with disabilities and long-term unemployed. Additional job training incentive will be combined with the hiring subsidy to increase the take-up rate. Third, the extension of the recovery benefits and temporary employment insurance measure recognize the reality of the third wave of COVID-19 infections in Canada. Emergency income support benefit and continues to be essential for working people during the ongoing public health crisis. From the beginning, the employment insurance program was not equipped, of course, to handle the extraordinary spike in unemployment. The unprecedented scale of job losses simply overwhelmed the EI system. A simplified unemployment benefit that allow automated claims process was needed. The government and the federal public service workers quickly designed and implement the Canada Emergency Benefit, or CERB, to cope with the wave of layoff. The EI system was unable to cope with the scale of the crisis, but not just because of the outdated technology and rigid administrative system. The EI program has also been severely eroded over decades. Eligibility restrictions shut out workers in part-time and non-standard work arrangement. This was especially the case for women, youth, and racialized workers. These workers were the hardest hit by the economic shock of the pandemic. Going forward, we must address the long-standing weakness in the EI program. We're pleased that yesterday's budget announced a forthcoming consultation on long-term EI reforms. In our view, the most important task is to expand access and increase the benefit levels. This is essential in reducing inequality and job market precarity. Improving access to EI and increasing benefit level will also encourage employers to improve job quality. Extending the maximum duration of benefits will also improve the quality of job matches. In our view, a comprehensive, open, participatory review of the EI program is long overdue. This review should include a careful examination of the management of the EI account and the program long-term financing arrangement. Even more importantly, it is time to restore direct federal government funding to EI. Most of the program's history, the federal government contributed a significant portion of the program costs. In the 1990s, the government withdrew entirely from the EI, from paying into the EI program. It is time to return to truly tripartite funding for employment insurance. This could be done by ensuring the federal government funding is tied to incentive to achieving and maintaining full employment. Below a certain level of unemployment threshold, say 4% employer and employee premiums could bear the full cost of the benefit. Beyond 4%, the federal government should, of course, be obliged to defray the cost of benefits stemming from the unusually high unemployment. This would acknowledge the government's primary responsibility in stabilizing the economy and eliminating unemployment. With that, of course, I would end my remarks and welcome any questions both to myself and my colleague, Chris Roberts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Youssef. Turning then to the Canadian Teachers Federation, Shelley Morse, President, all the way from Nova Scotia. Shelley, the floor is yours. You're muted. Happens all the time, Shelley.
It does, yes. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me here today. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm also pleased to be appearing alongside Hassan Youssef, as many thousands of our teachers and education workers are also members of the CLC. I would like to begin by acknowledging the land from which I am speaking to you today is Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people of Nova Scotia. I'd like to preface my remarks with a brief overview of the impact of COVID-19 on our students, teachers, and education workers. Canada's education system is one of the world's best. However, that standing is under severe threat due to the low prioritization it has received since the beginning of the pandemic. Education outcomes for students in this country are in jeopardy, and the federal government must continue to take action before more damage is done to our K-12 cohort and the economy. Last September, the OECD estimated that Canada's present value of GDP lost over the remainder of the century due to corona-induced learning loss could be as high as $2.5 billion. Of more immediate concern is the direct impact of school closures on the economy as Canada tries to recover. According to the CD Howe's Institute's comprehensive measure, K-12 schooling accounts for 11.5% of the GDP in Canada. Therefore, the disruption of the Canadian education system impacts the Canadian economy almost more than any other sector. These figures paint a stark picture around the importance of creating and maintaining safe schools. Still, again in Ontario and in many areas of Alberta and Quebec, school buildings are closed and students and teachers are forced to adopt online learning with its numerous shortcomings, in terms of equity and quality. Before going further, I also want to acknowledge the tremendous stress on all levels of government. On behalf of the Canadian Teachers Federation, thank you to your staff and to the dedicated members of the public service. Your work is so important. While we recognize that education falls under provincial and territorial jurisdiction, the CTF-FCEA applauded the $2 billion Safe Return to Class Fund. We appreciate the efforts made through this fund and other federal initiatives to try to keep students and educators safe. Unfortunately, I cannot stress this enough, that funding has not flowed down to the classroom level. Our teachers and education workers are still paying out of pocket for their PPE, hand sanitizers, additional cleaning products for their classrooms, and for makeshift dividers between desks. Likewise, the CTF-FCEA was pleased to see the government think outside the box by announcing Infrastructure Canada's $3 billion COVID-19 resilience funding stream, which aims to support projects such as retrofits and repairs for schools. We are also happy to see Infrastructure Canada's recent announcement of $120 million to support ventilation improvement projects in public buildings, including schools, which is something the CTF-FCEA has long called for. But we also have concerns. What are the reporting and accountability measures in place to ensure that projects being funded are not, for example, roof repairs that have been neglected for years? Similarly, how can the federal government work to ensure provinces spend the funds in a timely manner? In Ontario, just last week, they announced funding under the resilience stream for space reconfigurations, such as new walls or doors to enhance physical distancing. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a much needed investment, but it's the end of the school year. This federal fund was announced last August. That is why the CTF-FCEA has been advocating and will continue to advocate directly with federal officials and policymakers for better tracking of school-related federal funds, either through a federal, provincial, and territorial task force or other mechanisms, to ensure the funds are used in a timely manner and are reaching their intended destination and are making a tangible difference. Additionally, the CTF-FCEA urges consideration of other supports for people on the front lines. The lack of mental health funding for frontline workers remains a deep concern. A recent poll of Canadian teachers tells a worrying tale, with over 70% of respondents concerned about the impact of the pandemic on their own mental health and well-being. Of course, a major reason for this is the almost constant worry for their students in this challenging context. We were happy to see additional funding in the fall economic statement for the Wellness Together program, but more resources are needed and they must be allocated specifically for services tailored to the unique workplace stressors of teachers and other frontline workers. And as governments plan for the coming months, we must also ensure that teachers and all education workers have priority access to the COVID-19 vaccines so that our children can learn in class, parents can work, and our economy can begin to recover. The CTF-FCEA is grateful for the federal government's support throughout the pandemic. But as this third and most vicious wave makes clear, the pandemic is still very much with us. The challenges our country faces, including those experienced by teachers and education workers, will continue to require the government's full attention. On behalf of the over 300,000 teachers and their students across this country, I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the important work of the committee and welcome the opportunity to answer any questions. Merci.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morse. Turning then to the Quebec Council of Commerce, Jean-Guy Côté, CEO. Welcome.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank the committee members for this invitation, for giving me the opportunity to present the issues of the retail sector the day after of a big parliamentary day. tabling a budget is generally one of the biggest moments of the year, so we're very thankful for this to talk about the issues in the budget. I am the CEO of the Conseil and I've been in this position for only 4 weeks now, and I was a researcher beforehand at the Institute of Quebec, which is a Montreal association linked to the Conference Board of Canada. So I have been following what the government is adopting to resolve the pandemic crisis to ensure that individuals are able to come out of this. The Council represents thousands of retailers in Quebec. Many of the retailers are based in Quebec with headquarters in Quebec, but we're also retailers that are headquartered elsewhere in Canada. So we do share a lot of issues with other retailers elsewhere in Canada. And the Conseil represents a lot of small retailers. That is, people who have maybe just 1 or 2 stores, or 1 or 2 doors, as we call it. And we're dealing with different issues depending on the size of the retailer. And all of these retailers are facing a variety of different issues. We're still in a crisis state. We're still going through the pandemic. We've had lockdowns that have been very difficult in Quebec. Some regions are in a stricter lockdown than others. It depends on the case. The third wave is still hitting us, so the issues since March 2020 are still present with us, and there were programs that were set up and they're still relevant. We've seen that industries have been hit in different ways during the pandemic. Health, education, they were at the forefront of the pandemic. Tourism, accommodation, retails have sustained a lot more losses than other sectors. They've had to try and remain open under difficult circumstances. And so the experience of these people is very different from that of others. Our members have said that one thing has been important. The pandemic has come at a time when our retail industry is undergoing terrific change. There's the digital changes that are taking place. The whole industry is evolving and there have been major changes in the past 20 years, and the pandemic has been an accelerator for these changes. Now, 11% are now of all sales are online, which wasn't the case beforehand. 62% of the people now use their credit card when making purchases, which is a higher number compared to previous years, and 86% buy online, but products that are outside of Canada. So they're buying from foreign retailers, primarily in the United States. So the circumstances for the retail sector have changed tremendously over the past few months. The government response was very much appreciated in that the response was very strong, robust. It was necessary to deal with the issues, and the CERB has helped a lot of Canadians, and it enabled us to be in a position where we're going to look forward to a recovery. The wage subsidy was very necessary as it enabled us to maintain job attachment, and that really helped a lot of people, helped us keep people in their positions. And the other measures, and if I may, I'd like to talk about it, if that's possible. There's one measure that was announced to our big surprise yesterday, that they're going to be reopening the interchange fees file that is for credit card payments. This is a measure that the government can put in place, and it will give a lot of comfort to retailers and to consumers, so that we'll be able to participate in this economic recovery in the next few months. So I think that the next few months will be positive, and I hope I'm going to be able to answer your questions as well as I can over the next hour or so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cote. Then turning to a fellow islander with the Tourism Industry Association of Prince Edward Island, Ms. Clements, CEO. Go ahead, Corin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and hello to all of the Finance Committee members. I represent the Tourism Industry Association of Prince Edward Island, the hardest hit industry on the island since the onset of this pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, tourism was one of the top 3 industries on Prince Edward Island, generating an estimated $504.8 million in direct revenues and approximately $145 million in total tax revenues. Leading up to 2020, we enjoyed 5 consecutive record-breaking seasons, resulting in businesses in our industry reinvesting and expanding their operations. In 2019, Prince Edward Island welcomed an estimated 1.6 million visitors to our island, which has a humble population of just shy of 160,000. The cruise industry set a record with 128,000 passengers, near equal to our total population, and helping lengthen our traditionally seasonal industry in the spring and fall. For the 2020 season and again in 2021, cruise has ground to a complete halt, going from 128,000 passengers to 0. The impact this industry has not only on the ports affected, but to the supply chain from transportation providers, small businesses, including retail, restaurants, experiential product, and tour companies, is staggering. We have individual family-owned retail businesses sitting on over $1 million in inventory purchased in advance of the 2020 season and carrying that cost for multiple years. Our main transportation provider, normally employing approximately 500 people, now has 155 individuals working at a much reduced capacity. In other sectors, we have seen an 80% decline in our accommodations, and some operators, such as the island's own amusement parks, went from 350 staff in 2019 to 198 in 2020 across their 4 companies. Sales dropped from 60 to 80%, with the 2 largest amusement parks being down 80%. For one single attraction, this meant going from a $300,000 profit to a $300,000 loss, even with the subsidies in place. To put this in further perspective, that $300,000 in revenue would afford this business the ability to pay down approximately $250,000 in debt and to continue to expand their operations. Instead, the pandemic has forced them now to take on an additional $300,000 in loans just to keep the lights on, as opposed to investing in new capital projects. In addition to the financial impact, companies are losing their workforce amid the uncertainty that they have spent many years developing. Continued investment by the federal government will be required to support skill development. While some of our larger businesses have taken on additional loans as a means of survival, many of our smaller operators don't have the capacity to do so. While carrying existing debt from investments in previous years, these businesses can't comfortably take on additional debt without any indication of when they may be able to pay it off. HASCAP, for example, has benefited a small number of businesses on Prince Edward Island, but no matter how low the interest rates or payback terms are, many will not entertain this as a viable option for them. We recognize how fortunate our island has been in the face of this pandemic, and we're grateful to be open to the Atlantic bubble in the summer of 2020. This, paired with the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and other supports, allowed many of our operators to open for the season, albeit at a much reduced capacity and at great financial cost. As we move towards the 2021 season, our optimism has shifted to the realities of another bleak tourism year. At best, we are preparing for another Atlantic bubble, but many of our operators will not survive without the continued extension of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy supports. These programs provide a backstop for our businesses to keep staff employed and keep the doors open in a time of much uncertainty. With border closures and continued COVID-19 restrictions, these operators are in an impossible position of trying to budget, plan, staff, and forecast with no real understanding of what the coming months will bring. The Government of Canada has acknowledged the hardest hit sector with these supports, and we thank you for recognizing the importance of our industry and ask that you continue to consider and evaluate these programs. As we move to reopening to the rest of Canada, our industry is faced with the reality of no meaningful tourism in Prince Edward Island until the 2021 season. Even if our operators survive the 2021 season, without the ability to generate meaningful cash flow, they are looking at a long winter to prepare for what is hopefully an improved 2022. The industry will not see 2019 visitation or expenditure levels that we enjoyed only a couple of years ago, but signify the start of a struggle back to the thriving industry we once were. With that, our focus is on ensuring the survival of our operators and recognizing the importance of not only surviving, but finding a way to see capital infrastructure investments and upkeep so that our businesses are well positioned to welcome back visitors to our island in the way we once did, with world-class hospitality, authentic island experiences, and product that is refreshed, renewed, and revitalized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clements. Before I go to our last witness, the order for questions will be first Ms. Jansen, followed by Mr. Fragaskatis and Mr. Blanchett-Joncas and Mr. Julian. So turning to our last witness from the Fitness Industry Council of Canada, Sarah Hodson, National Representative. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here today. The Fitness Industry Council of Canada represents over 6,000 fitness facilities across this great country, ranging from single boutiques to national chains, nonprofit, and municipal facilities. Pre-COVID, the fitness industry employed 150,000 people and served 6 million Canadians. We are in an industry that has been severely decimated by COVID-19 due to closures and restrictions across the country. Today, we have laid off half of our employees and we have lost half of our membership. The majority of fitness has been closed over the last year, despite worldwide data showing that fitness facilities are not transmission sites of COVID-19, and facilities are operating somewhere at 10 to 50% of their revenues. The wage and rent subsidies have been very much appreciated by our industry. We still experience severe financial hardships. We continue to have small business loans, equipment leases, property taxes, debts from PPE, as well as we are an industry that had to very quickly invest and create online platforms in order to continue to keep Canadians active at home. Facilities are losing currently 15 to 30,000 per month per facility. We have a lot of fitness brands and facilities that were opened for the year before the pandemic hit, and those facilities are not being able to benefit from some of the subsidies that we have, and I want to bring that to our attention today. Fitness facilities in the current state where we are today across this country have anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks of remaining capital and have taken on significant debt, have defaulted on their leases and their loans. Currently, looking across this country, we see that about a third of fitness facilities have already closed. Some have gone in silence, some have gone publicly, but we know that a third of facilities have closed. And we will see that number double as our industry has to bear the weight of reopening. We foresee that once Canadians are fully vaccinated, that it will take about 6 to 9 months for our industry to just gain the 3 million members that we lost, to offset the debts and the other costs that we have now taken on We need to increase our membership base by 20%, meaning that we have to serve 7.2 million Canadians. And we project that that will take an additional 6 to 9 months. So overall, the fitness industry is 18 months away from any type of return to the February 2020 state of the industry, which will take us to February of 2023. This is a 3-year critical financial impact on our industry. As we all know, the federal budget was released yesterday, and as much as there is great initiatives included for mental health, we are disappointed as the fitness industry that our proposal was not considered in the 2021 budget. I do believe that as much as we did include mental health in the budget, we really missed an opportunity to help Canadians' mental, physical, and social health. And this is where fitness and fitness facilities come in. On January 28th, I had the great pleasure to present to Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland an economic recovery plan for the fitness industry. And our proposal was to have fitness memberships and services considered as a medical expense on our personal taxes. That's line 33099. Our proposal included financial modeling that actually showed projected healthcare savings ranging from $500 million to $2 billion a year by combating physical inactivity in Canada. Our proposal supported the employment of young people, the recovery of our industry, and the health of Canadians. We were endorsed and backed by Heart and Stroke, Diabetes Canada, and the Canadian Cardiovascular Society. So why does fitness even matter for Canadians right now? Well, the reality is that exercise is medicine. And there's so much that I wish I had time to share with you, but exercise is known to reduce hypertension and cancer and diabetes by up to 60%, stroke by 50%, Alzheimer's by 40%, and exercise is just as effective as antidepressants. We know that we are in a physical inactivity pandemic, and this was echoed by the World Health Organization in 2018. We are fighting COVID as a country, and the access for physical activity right now is at risk. We are on the verge of losing 2/3 of fitness facilities, eliminating Canadians' access. So what is the solution? We need to make this tax deductible. As a country that funds the research that teaches and supports exercise as medicine, we now have to give Canadians the opportunity to benefit from exercise as medicine. This is Canada's opportunity to gain global attention and recognition for incenting the people of Canada to get active, to make a bold statement that physical activity is fundamental to our healthcare system. The time is now. We are losing our fitness industry, but together we can create change and empower Canadians' physical, mental, and social health. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and certainly thank all the witnesses. We're covering all the bases, students, teacher, labor, and in industry, retail, tourism, and fitness. So very interesting witness presentations. Turning then to Ms. Jansen, 6-minute round, followed by Mr. Fragaskatis. Tamara?
Yes, thank you very much. And a special thanks to Sarah Hodson for coming and giving us that wonderful presentation. I was able to kind of see the whole presentation beforehand, which was great because I thought, I mean, for myself, sitting on Zoom for hour upon hour for the last year, I know I've become very inactive, gained weight, and definitely you feel it mentally. There's no doubt about it. And you and I had discussed how much better we feel when we do get up and get active. And what I really loved about your presentation that you did give to Ms. Freeland was the fact that there's actually it's a win-win, So maybe you can just sort of fill us in a little bit more, because you did mention you have a lot more to say, but didn't have enough time. So please fill us in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. This really is a win for the federal government. This is a win for Canadians, and this is a win to recover the fitness industry. And so when we actually look at the data that has been published by Canada on inactivity, we know that it costs us annually $2,000 per person who is inactive and has underlying health concerns. And so we have 30 million Canadians who are inactive. And so really the upside on this is that we can actually create healthcare savings. We can promote the healthcare of Canadians. We can employ young people. We can invigorate and re-energize an industry that I cannot stress enough. It is an industry that has been severely decimated. And so there really is no downside to this proposal. And I believe that it is something that we absolutely have to take seriously right now.
I know over the weekend, I actually got an email from a local constituent who also has a gym. I don't want to say too much about him because we haven't had a chance to talk, so I don't know that he wants to go public, but he ended up buying a gym just before COVID happened. And it was a gym, a longstanding gym. It's been around for 30 years. And he, because of all the little, wonky things with all the different programs, he looks like he's going to lose the gym. I've had so many people in my riding that I have dealt with that have lost, whether it be gym, a dance studio, things that have huge impact on our communities and our communities' health and mental health as well. I wonder if you could speak a little bit more to how much impact things like gyms and dance studios and so forth actually have on our local communities.
Yeah, and I think that's where I really think this is an emphasis on mental and social health. We see people who come together and really create a community, and not only is exercise medicine. So truly from a physiological perspective, we know that when we move our bodies, we are combating depression, stress, anxiety, but we are feeding social health, we are feeding community. And we have a nation that has been isolated due to this pandemic. And when we look at places like Australia and New Zealand that we can look at, and people are wanting to participate in fitness coming out of this. People are wanting to connect in places that are recreation based, in places that are movement based. And so this is all about, again, supporting the mental health of Canadians. And when we look at, the operator that you mentioned is not somebody who, that is not a unique story. Those are the stories that I'm hearing on a daily basis. For me, myself, my business came into this pandemic a healthy, thriving business. I've built it over a decade. And my business now has $300,000 of debt. And I have to somehow bring back my business, grow my business even more, just to bring myself back to where I was. And again, that's going to be a 3-year plan. And we have not even begun to see the fallout of our industry. Because our industry has been closed for the majority of this year, we don't even know what our industry can bear financially in the sense of reopening.
I wonder what your thoughts are on the lack of information coming from Health Canada in regards to, activities, physical activities being good for your health. I know I was kind of shocked. I've heard very little about, build your immunity with vitamins and with activities and stuff like that. I wonder if you could speak to that as well.
Yeah, I think that with the closure of gyms, that sends a message that maybe that is not a safe place. Yet, as I shared earlier, when we look at worldwide data, gyms and fitness centers are not transmission sites of COVID-19. They actually have a 0.06% rate globally. And so we are safe, and we can share a message of get outside and be active. That doesn't work for everybody. That doesn't meet all Canadians where they're at. And as we've spoken about, we're all sitting here on Zoom as we're doing all day long. And that's not an easy feat, never mind weather and so forth. And actually, the British Medical Journal just this past week revealed that a sedentary lifestyle is directly correlated to severe COVID outcomes, death, hospitalization, and recovery, which is draining our healthcare dollars. And we as a nation have shut down the providers of physical, mental, and social health. And so as we reopen, we need a way to be here for Canadians, and that's at risk.
A quick one, Tamara. Very quick.
Okay, just the way that the government, you were hoping that the government would incentivize people to take charge of their own health and it was just a great idea. What was the savings you said we could have had?
So if we actually get 1.2 million Canadians active out of the 30 million that are currently sedentary, we actually can have an upside of anywhere from $500 million up to $2 billion. $2 billion representing those people who have underlying health concerns. So someone with high blood pressure, we get them active. That is the return that we can bring back into healthcare.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Turning into Mr. Fragaskatis, followed by Mr. Blanchard-Jonas. Peter?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for the time this afternoon. I wanted to begin with Mr. Youssef, if I could. Mr. Youssef, thanks for your continued advocacy on behalf of Canadian workers. I'm speaking from London, Ontario today. We have a thriving workforce here, traditional base in manufacturing, but many other areas. And I know the workers really appreciate the work of the Congress. I wanted to ask you a question relating to an op-ed that you co-wrote in June of 2020. The fact that you wrote an op-ed is not the point here. You've written before, but you co-wrote the op-ed with Goldie Hyder. And it's interesting because, as we know, Goldie Hyder is a key voice of Canadian business. He's the chief executive of the Canadian Business Council. The title of the op-ed is "There is no economic recovery without adequate childcare." So here we have the business community coming together with labor in a rare partnership to advocate for childcare from many perspectives, but making the case that it is an economic imperative for the country to move ahead with. Yesterday's budget was historic for many reasons, but at the center of it was childcare. I wonder if you could speak to the importance of moving ahead with the government's vision on childcare and how critical it is as we think about a post-COVID-19 Canada from an economic lens.
Thank you very much. Yes, I do remember the article very vividly, and more importantly, Goldie actually texted me late last night saying what a great collaboration it was, and this morning I didn't respond to him. This point was, I think, between both of us, was the recognition that COVID-19 had devastating impact on especially working women's lives, but in women in general. The majority of responsibility for taking care of kids are falling to women, and more importantly, we've made great stride in bringing women into the workforce. Now, there's a real possibility, of course, we're going completely backwards. So yesterday's announcement, I still haven't got over the excitement of what the announcement in the budget represents on behalf of the country. I do believe this is a historical moment, of course, for us to bring the province on side as how we can truly build a national system from the experience that we've seen in Quebec, which has been, of course, incredibly important for women's participation, but equally important for early learning for children in the schools, and more importantly for families who are struggling with childcare needs. I think this is going to incredibly, of course, have an incredible impact on the economy. And I do believe this is truly a moment in the country's history where, regardless of one's opinion, we should all come together to support this initiative because we think it represents such a fundamental commitment on behalf of course, working families in this country, but more importantly, working women. In addition to that, I think, of course, the program over time would more than pay for itself with women's participation, their contribution, of course, in paying taxes into the economy, but also their ability, of course, to have the independence of earning an income and equally able to provide for their family. So I saw many interviews yesterday watching, of course, the expression of individuals who are struggling with childcare and wondering, of course, how this is going to help them, and recognizing that it's something that this country badly needs. And yesterday's investment for the next number of years are going to be really important, of course, for us to win this effort. But equally, I think now it will take all of us rolling our sleeve, working with the provinces and territory to ensure they collaborate with the federal government to ensure we can build truly a national childcare program on behalf of all working people in this country.
Thank you for that view. The economist Jim Sanford, who you will know very well, said the following about yesterday's announcement. I'm quoting him here. He estimates that the gain will be 2 to 4 times higher than what many economists are saying as far as the lift to the GDP, and what many economists are talking about is a 1.2% increase to the overall GDP. Again, he's estimating that'll be 2 to 4 times higher than that. And as a result of that growth, the tax revenue coming into federal coffers will cover the $8.3 billion a year ongoing in terms of ongoing costs. I cite this as a way to kind of introduce my final question for you, and that is, when you hear, as we certainly will, I'm sure, in the coming weeks from opposition colleagues about, or some opposition colleagues, about the costs of a national child care program, what's your response to that? What's the CLC's view on that?
Well, my response...
That it will be, the opposition will certainly say that it will be too expensive, we can't afford it, so on and so forth.
Well, you know, childcare does cost money, and it does cost money for us to build the infrastructure to make sure it happens. But we have seen from the experiences been documented time over time from the Quebec reality that the program more than pays for itself. They have the highest participation of women today in the Quebec economy, and that itself speaks to it. But never mind, of course, the comfort and support that working families, of course, recognize how much this program does for them. I think Jim Stanford is absolutely correct. This program will more than pay for itself over time. And there is a national consensus more, I think, also in labor and business, that this is something that needs to be done. We've talked about this long enough. I think it's now for us to get on with it. We may differ about the specific. We, of course, are very biased in loving the Quebec program. It's evolved over the years. By the way, as a program, it hasn't stand still since its creation. We believe this program equally will evolve as it goes on and get better. But our biases, of course, is where we differ a little bit in terms of the implementation, what the program should look like. But we do believe at the end of the day, this program will more than pay for itself over time. But it will also give the fulfillment, which is, we live in a very unequal society. Let's face the reality. As much as I would like to pretend as a man as how much I contribute to my household, I know I do far less than my partner, because sometimes most of the burden has fallen to her. And I take pride in the fact that my country is now going to do something that can make women's equality a center stone and the cornerstone of its economic expansion going forward. So I think we all should feel good, but equally we now should figure out how we can work together to ensure this actually happens at the provincial level, because we do need provincial support and cooperation. I'm hoping I'll do my part in the Congress to help build a broad coalition that can push the provincial government to come on side to support this program.
Okay, we will have to move on, turning to Mr. Blanchette-Jonas, followed by Mr. Julian Maxim.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank all of our witnesses. My question is for the Conseil Québécois de commerce du Côté. Mr. Côté, I would imagine that the pandemic has really upset the behavior of people, not only because of the health measures, but certain retail stores that we used to go to, we can no longer go to. So with this change that we've noticed on online commerce or e-commerce, it must be very difficult for the retail sector to compete with these giant e-commercers who don't, let's say if you buy a product for $10, but if you spend $15 on shipping, is that another issue for the merchant and the client? We know that people who want to buy online do so because of the price. Do you think that Canada Post should do something to to come up with a solution for businesses? Thank you for your question. The retailers have been able to adjust, so they are resourceful and they have been able to adjust to deal with this competition. But clearly, there are some competitive elements are difficult for a retailer. You're talking about economies of scale with respect to some huge e-commerce merchants that we're all aware of. So they've had to. We would be very happy if there were some changes made, but I'd like to point out that there are some solutions, some alternatives, other ways to deal with delivery. And the price is not the only driver that pushes people to buy online. There's a whole issue of ease. So some people find it easier to go online to make purchase. We've seen, and this is interesting, is that people travel to a store, but when they go, they don't spend much time in the stores. But when they buy a lot. So that's they buy a lot. So that's so people, instead of going to buy just a few little things or just go and browse, they go in to buy something in particular, and they leave with the product that they wanted. So we've seen a change in behavior. And this will probably remain post-pandemic. Delivery issues are anything that we could do with that would be welcome. To make retailers more competitive, what we've seen in the past few years are the tax issues. How can a retailer compete with a giant e-commerce business? And this whole perception of taxes or collection of taxes is not always equitable for the small local retailer compared to the big retailers that are big e-commerce businesses that are outside of the country. This pertains to the HST as well. Do you think that yesterday's budget do you think that collection of HST on all platforms, do you think that will enable our merchants to go to the municipalities? And do you think that, is it too late? Can we reverse the trend? Better late than never. Essentially, the QST is being collected on online platforms, so we already did have that set up. The Quebec experience shows that when we ask for these taxes, most businesses comply, and they are prepared to register in order to have these taxes collected. But clearly, we've been talking about this issue since 2015. And in terms of equity between online and stores and retailers, there's always things that need to be improved. The purchasers can be so rather than just relying on the business to pay the tax, so we can maybe turn to the clients, but we will be collecting taxes in and the way we do it in Quebec, it's been working, and it could be extended to the rest of Canada. And a lot of these online businesses, 86%, are done with businesses that are outside of Canada. So that's a lot of business that escapes the Canadian border, and therefore we need to restore equity. Mr. Cote, in your opinion, if the GST had been collected before the pandemic on Quebec's, following Quebec's footsteps, I'm from Quebec, so I can't really say, but you have to understand the real big trends for online shopping. Well, should we have looked at behaviors of consumers instead of who could have been convinced to go to a local business? Perhaps that's something we could have done, but the pandemic has really focused on local purchases, and now people are they're making an effort to go and buy from their local businesses. So this has had a positive impact where in communities where the retailers are located close by, I can say that we will see the day when the stores will know your names. And that's a great trend that I think that's one positive thing that's come out of the pandemic. I have another question for you, Mr. Cote.
Thank you both, and you will have another couple and a half minutes down the line, Maxim. Turning then to Mr. Julian, who will be followed by Mr. Falk. 6 minutes, Peter.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to our witnesses. We deeply appreciate you coming forward today. You're all very eloquent, and we hope that you and your families are staying safe and healthy during this deadly and tragic third wave that is sweeping across our country. I've got a lot of questions, and I'll start off with Ms. Breanis, Ms. Morse, and then Ms. Clements and Ms. Hodson. We really appreciate your testimony today. And Ms. Morse, when you talked about teachers having to buy their own protective equipment in a country as wealthy as Canada, it just made my heart sink that we're subjecting teachers and students to this kind of situation. As you're probably aware, the strongest criticism of the budget that was released yesterday is the fact that Canada's billionaires, who have massively profited from this pandemic, nearly $80 billion in increased wealth, aren't subject to any sort of taxation. The wealth tax that other countries are adopting is not being put in place in Canada. And so at the same time, we're seeing that billionaires are not paying anything remotely to their fair share. We're seeing that the government is looking to curb starting within a few weeks. In just over 9 weeks, we will start to see effectively dramatic cuts in the Canada Recovery Benefit, in the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, in CEBA. So the government is basically presuming that in 9 weeks we'll be out of this and they can slash all the supports that should be put in place to support small businesses, to support students, to support teachers across the country. My question to each of you is that a wise course of action, given the size and scope of this third wave, greater than the other two, the increased death toll and hospitalization? Does it make sense that the government in 9 weeks, a little over 9 weeks, will start to slash benefits and end them all in September of this year?
And I'll start with Ms. Breanis.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that question. One thing that I'll raise is that students currently actually don't have access to financial benefits at all. So when we're talking about financial resources ending, there hasn't been anything specific to students in September of 2020. Moratoriums also ended in October of 2020. So students are really looking for any form of financial relief right now. And when we look at the Canada Recovery Benefit that is available, many students aren't eligible for it because of that stipulation of the $5,000 requirement to have been made in the last fiscal year. So what we're really looking for is for any kind of recovery benefit available currently as well as moving forward. Students need to be included in this access because, again, if we're looking at wanting to stimulate the economy, that's simply not possible when students are barely able to afford their education and then are facing tens of thousands of dollars of debt load upon graduation, and even more significantly now due to the troubles with the job market. So we really need to be opening access, and we're calling for our government to include students in specific student-centered responses, as well as opening up the general availability of response benefits to include every person studying in this country, both domestic and international. Ms.
Morris, you're muted. We'll come back. Go ahead.
No, thank you very much. And an important question. Certainly, I think we're being overly optimistic to think that in 9 weeks we will be on the other side of the third wave and that benefits won't be required. I think federal government needs to take a closer look at that. We know that substitute teachers in Canada have suffered greatly throughout this pandemic. Of course, their jobs depend on being able to teach, and that isn't happening because we aren't in schools. And we need students in schools in order for our economy to recover. So I think government needs to look more carefully at ways to keep our schools open safely and ensure that our students are in school learning in front of a teacher. We all know that glaring inequities have been shown on our education system in terms of students and their access to connectivity and devices. So our best bet is to have our students and our teachers in schools, which means government is going to have to step up with more stringent health and safety protocols in our school buildings and with money to make sure that our schools stay open safely. So I think government needs to look a little more carefully at their thought that we will be well on the other side of this in 9 weeks.
Ms. Clements, followed by Ms. Hodson. Ms. Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Julian, for the question. As I indicated earlier, the wage subsidy has really been a critical lifeline for a lot of our operators, and certainly in Prince Edward Island and other areas across Canada, the tourism industry is very much seasonal. So we have, a large portion of our industry is based on a 6-month season. So for us to be looking at the declining rates of those wage subsidies right now, when we're still in those border restrictions, we're not even open to Atlantic Canada, it makes it incredibly difficult. Our infrastructure is built to be welcoming 1.6 million visitors. And right now with a population of 160,000 people on Prince Edward Island, it's just not realistic for us to sustain this. So we were certainly concerned when we saw those declining measures, and really for us to look at that Atlantic Canada component, again in Prince Edward Island and my Atlantic Canada counterparts, we're all in very similar situations in the sense that our operators just can't sustain their operations. Last year with the wage subsidy in place and those supports at a higher rate, a lot of our operators were still seeing deficits at the end of the year. So for us to get through this season and really to be able to prepare for next year with the optimism of being open to all of Canada and beyond, I think it's really imperative for us to see those supports back in place as they were.
Ms. Hodson, fairly quickly, if you could.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Julian. So yes, the fitness industry being an industry that has been closed for the majority of the last 14 months here. As I stated, we are looking at February 2023 just in order to get back to our industry state from February 2020. And so if we are a minimum of 18 months away following full vaccination of this country, then, in September, if our subsidies and supports were lifted, our industry would have a very critical collapse. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. And I just have a follow-up question based on what Peter said and you said, Ms. Morse, before I go to Mr. Falk. In your early remarks, you said that teachers are paying for PPEs out of pocket. Can you send the clerk a little more detail on that? That actually really does surprise me. There's a lot of money went to provinces to cover those costs and the added ventilation this week. What's happening there? Why is it not happening on the ground? That bothers me, that money is being sent to provinces to be spent for specific issues and doesn't seem to be getting there, because I'm shocked that teachers are paying out of pocket for PPEs and dividers between desks and so on. That's just pure wrong. So if you could send us further information on that, Shelley, that would be helpful.
Yes, we certainly can.
Okay. Turning to Mr. Falk, we're in a 5-minute round, followed by Ms. Zerwitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all the presenters here today. I appreciated listening to all your testimony and your experiences. Ms. Hodson, I want to make 2 observations. I don't even want to ask you a question. First of all, I want to commend you for your backdrop. I love your backdrop. It's a fantastic message for this committee, but it's a fantastic message for all Canadians that we still live in the best country in the world. We have lots to be thankful for, and joy is the choice we make every morning when we get up. And I know you found that joy. So thank you for sharing that with Canadians this afternoon. The other thing that you did, Ms. Hodson, is you made a statement about data-driven decisions. And that's something I think that's been absent in the decision making on a lot of different levels, provincially, federally, and certainly that's something I think we need to get back to. We need to see fiscal anchors. We need to see specific benchmarks as to when we're going to open up borders, how we're going to do it, and it's got to be based on data. And so, Ms. Clements, I'd like to ask you a few questions because I have tourism operators in my riding that operate Northern Lodges, Northern Airlines, and even though I'm based in Southern Manitoba. And they talk to me about the hardships they have, and I empathize you with your tourism challenges in PEI. I've been to your province; it's a lovely province, as Mr. Easter will attest to. He's a great champion for you folks. But I do want to ask you, what will it take to restore your tourism industry?
Thank you for the question. I mean, I think the easy answer is the movement of people. Our industry is based on human interaction. We have air traffic. We've seen our air traffic here in Prince Edward Island has been devastated from a capacity standpoint, cruise, motor coach, meetings and conventions. It's really to be able to bring those people back. So that, the vaccination rate and the vaccination rollout is really important for us to see that happen so that we can have tourism and traffic flowing in a meaningful way. Until that time, we need those supports in place. And we've seen a lot of our operators, I always say I won't use the word pivot because I think I'm tired of hearing pivot, but a lot of our operators have had the ability to innovate and adapt their product, but we do have operators who just can't. The transportation with the motor coach industry, our amusement parks, you can't pivot or adapt those products. They just are what they are. So we need to get those people moving again.
Good, thank you. In yesterday's budget that was presented, it was 724 pages. And on page 73 of that, it's 1.6, a plan for safe reopening of our borders. And in it, the Liberal government talks about the stringent measures they've had in closing our borders. What they don't elaborate on is what that plan is. And they don't elaborate on the fact that it needs to be data-driven. And if you look at the data south of our 49th parallel, we know that their data is much different than our data. It seems to me they've opened up their economies, they've opened up their states, their country is trying to resume back to normal because they have a plan. We asked for a plan. Many of the organizations that have presented to this committee have asked for data-driven plans. Give us a plan to reopen the economy for us to resume normal. How important is it that the government establishes a plan with specific benchmarks to reopen borders?
That's exactly what we've been talking about, certainly here from even a provincial standpoint, is understanding what those benchmarks are. We understand those might be moving targets by times, but we really need to understand what the benchmarks are to reopen. And again, I think we have a number of issues, certainly in Atlantic Canada and Prince Edward Island, we have a confidence issue. So that we have resident sentiment. People are nervous about having visitation start up again. We have that traveler sentiment. So I think there's a lot of work to do on educating and making people understand what those benchmarks are and what will get us open in a safe manner again.
Thank you. I think I'm out of time.
No, you got another. You're okay, Ted. You got another minute.
I'm actually good. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then I'm going to take a little of your time just to mention something here. I do chair the Canada-U.S. Interparliamentary Group. An American congressman and I held a couple of press conferences on trying to lay out a plan to open the Canada-U.S. border. I mean, what's the plan? How do you get there? And on Ted's point, and yours, Corinne, as well, I warned my staff before we done it that the phones would light up here and they wouldn't be able to handle the calls and the criticism, and I was correct. So I guess my question to you, Corinne, is how do we get around this fear that is there in terms of getting people moving again? There's a real fear. I mean, my lines lit up the next day entirely. So how do we get around that fear? I agree, it's the right thing to do. We need to plan. We need to open the borders. We need to get people moving again, and it needs to be done safely. But how do we handle that fear?
You know, we've talked about that at an Atlantic Canada level, and even at the Tourism Industry Association of Canada. I think we all struggle to a certain extent with varying degrees of getting around that fear. I think Ms. Hodson mentioned earlier the transmission rates in gyms, and I think there's that perception out there. We hear it all the time with airlines, and we know the transmission rate of COVID is incredibly low, similar to fitness facilities. So I think there has to be a communication plan, roll out federally, provincially, to start that messaging around what safe movement and safe travel can be and how we can operate in safe capacities. You know, our Tourism Industry Association here in Prince Edward Island, just this past weekend, we hosted a job fair, and I'm thrilled to say we had 600 people through. And I think these days that's unheard of in COVID times. So I think there are ways that we can start to safely reactivate and re-engage our industry. We just really need to educate and communicate to the public within our provinces and across Canada that we can do these things safely.
Okay, thank you all. Turning to Ms. Zurwitz, followed by Mr. Blanches-Chunkas.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to all the presenters today, and thanks to everyone for this really great conversation on a number of important topics. My first question is to Mr. Youssef. Mr. Youssef, thanks so much. I'd like to also...
We're having trouble hearing you. You're not coming through very clear there, Julie. Okay.
How's this? Can people hear me? Oh, I have to plug in. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Okay. So anyways, I want to thank everyone for their great presentations. I'm embarrassed. I forgot to plug in my headset, but now I'm here. I want to, I have a couple of questions to Mr. Youssef, and then I have a question or two for Ms. Morse. Mr. Youssef, thanks so much for your strong advocacy for on behalf of workers, as well as your service to our nation. Many of your members live in my riding of Davenport, and so I interact with them quite frequently. My first question to you is, one of the things we've been hearing throughout this COVID-19 spending programs study is we'll have some people come to us and say, we have a lot of jobs right now that we're not able to fill. And we also know that we have around 460,000 jobs 460,000 Canadians who are still looking for jobs. Could you maybe talk a little bit about how do we address this mismatch right now?
Well, I think there is a challenge in the context of the skills and, of course, the job that's available. And I think we got to do a better job in helping more workers update their skills, renew their skills that can, of course, try to fit into the job market that constantly are changing. And of course, that's the challenge we face. We're dealing at a rate and speed in which the job market is transitioning and changing. And workers, I think, are going to need to have ongoing access to training. It's not just something you'll do today and not doing it again tomorrow and a week later. I think we have to figure out a way how we can better give workers access to ongoing training so they can continue to upgrade. We've got a lot of skilled Canadians in the country. Of course, they may live in a part of the country where the job that is vacant is not in their jurisdiction. And similarly, of course, as we will deal with transition measures to do with climate, we will also have to figure out how we take some of those workers. A lot of them are skilled, and how do we get them to other parts of the country or change their skills so they can fit into the job market that might exist in their area. There's also one other area I think we need to continue to recognize and build on, of course, is the immigration policy of the country. I think it's recognized we're going to need lots more Canadians to meet, of course, the challenge we face in terms of growth in the population as people retire and die off. And given the limited, child birth that we're having in the country, how do we continue to bring in people and use many different avenues to do that? And I think this is very important because it allows, of course, us to recognize that, that we, of course, got to help Canadians get into the job market, because if we don't, we're going to get resentment. But equally, would need new Canadians to help also come from abroad to help fill the job market that exists, that they can bring their skills and talent to put to work in Canada.
That's helpful, Mr. Youssef. And just to maybe to on that, do you think we have the local and regional labor and skills data that we need across the country that will help us to sort of adjust and properly adjust our immigration policy as well as our skills and training strategy to be able to make sure that we have people moving to where the jobs are or training up to where the jobs are?
I think we have good data in terms of those that are unemployed because they are in the system if they're filing for benefits or they lose their job. We don't have good data on what the skills are, those workers, when they do lose their job. And I think there have to be a better way to do an assessment of workers before they actually get laid off or their job is gone. So at least we know what the skill level is. And more importantly, ask those workers they're willing and able to, of course, get into a training program that they can access will help them update their skills while they might be on benefit or maybe trying to transition to a new job.
Thank you so much. And then my last question is to Ms. Morris. Ms. Morris, I'm following along the lines of what Mr. Easter was talking about earlier. I was too worried about your comment about PPE, but I really appreciated your comment around the fact that you want to work on reporting and accountability measurements in place. And I wonder if you might not have this now, and if not, then I'd really love it if you would forward this to the committee in due time. But if you have specific recommendations to the federal government in terms of how do we do better in terms of directly sending money, whether it's to our school system, so that it gets to you in a timely way, and it goes to exactly where it's supposed to be going. I think we're struggling how to make sure that we do that as efficiently as and effectively as possible. Would you have any ideas that you might want to share right now? And if not, would you be able to forward that to us?
Certainly. It is alarming that teachers are spending out of their own pockets for their protective equipment to go to work each day, but it's nothing new for teachers across Canada. We have always financed our own classrooms, although we were never told that that's what we would be doing when we were hired. Lots of times we don't have the necessary books and consumables that we need to do our job as teachers. So when COVID hit and we were told that we would be going back to school, we knew that we would probably be supplying PPEs and hand sanitizers and whatever was necessary for us to do our jobs well. It's not what we should be doing. It's that should be supplied by our provinces and territories, but we can't see our students suffer either. So I think we need an accountability mechanism. When the money is supposed to go, I think it was a very broad target to be used for COVID and getting students back to school. But there were no consultations with our teacher organizations to say, this is what our plan is for the money. Do you have any suggestions? What would you say teachers would find most important and most helpful so that they can deliver their curriculum well? So we need that door open for consultations. We need some type of accountability mechanism. The government has generously given funding for classrooms, but it has not trickled down. And when the teacher organizations across Canada have asked questions, they don't get a response or any type of answer. So I think moving forward, government has to make sure that provinces and territories are accountable for that money because it was slated for a specific use, but we're not seeing that translated into our classrooms.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. We are a little over time on that one. Then we'll go to a 2.5-minute round with Mr. Blanchette Yoncas, followed by Mr. Julian Maxim. I'm
going to pursue with the questioning with Mr. Cote. Mr. Cote, the loss of income, the government of Quebec with respect to the TVA said it was talking about $260 million, and that GSC must represent several $1 million as well. Do you have any information pertaining to the loss of income on the tax side, and more specifically for online goods? The University of Sherbrooke did some research on the impact of GST on products bought abroad, and it was up to $1.3 billion per year in lost income on products sold online for the government. In the case of a return to normal, we're talking about a significant amount of income for the government, or revenue for the government, and we're referring to international platforms. Notwithstanding all of that, there are measures of interchange fees. Canada used to have the highest fees in the year, and Europe capped this at 0.5%. In Canada, we had 1.4. Now we've gone down somewhat. This measure will really do a lot to help get more money back into the system. I'll give you for the Europe, it is estimated that the European Union got about $800 billion of euros, rather, for projects simply by changing the interchange fees. We're going to participate actively in our consultations, and we will talk about what we're expecting to see in the fall. Thank you very much for that clarification. With the budget yesterday, we've seen the rent and wage subsidies are being extended. So do you believe that the sectors that have been hard hit, various businesses that have seen these programs been extended, do you think that they're still helpful? It's going to depend on these. If we still have high number of cases of COVID during the week, if businesses can't reopen, perhaps the phasing out will be more difficult for various businesses. The wage subsidy was very important to merchants because it enabled the businesses to maintain job attachment for their employees. And it's important that we have to be able to say, okay, I've been sent you home 3 times as a result of lockdowns. If the employee is going to go elsewhere, and that's going to make it very difficult for businesses to recruit people back to their businesses. And you have to look at what's happening in the sector. This might cause some problems.
Thank you both. To turn to Mr. Julian, but we will have a little time after next 5. It'll be Mr. Kelly, Ms. Koutrakis, Ms. May, and Mr. Sabara. So we will have a few minutes left if others want on. So turn into Mr. Julian.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to turn to Mr. Youssef for a question. And I'd like to thank you for being such a strong advocate for public universal pharmacare, as well as the Canadian Labour Congress. We've had labour activists across the country who have really been fighting for public universal pharmacare, particularly with this pandemic and the number of people who've lost their jobs. What we're seeing is an increasing number of people who have no medication plan at all. And so that's why what was brought forward in February was so important. The Canada Pharmacare Act, endorsed by the CLC, as you know, government voted that down. That would have structured pharmacare on the same basis as our universal health care. The Hoskins report called for funding this year to negotiate with the provinces to set things in motion. And there is no new funding available for pharmacare at all in this budget. And so what many people are saying is that this isn't abandoning pharmacare. That the pharmacare and childcare could have been discussed, negotiated with the provinces together. Could you outline the importance of having public universal pharmacare for workers and for the millions of Canadians who have no medication plan and who struggle to pay for their medication, particularly in a pandemic?
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for your question. Of course, we have had a campaign now that's over 3 years in regard to, of course, establishing a national pharmacare. And this come about, again, through our own convention and dialogue with our members. I spent a couple of months crisscrossing the country. I did a 27-city tour, talking to Canadians in general about the challenge we face. And fundamentally, I think the stories I heard certainly broke my heart in regard of how people are struggling to access medication. And it certainly reinforced for us, this is a fundamental, I think, commitment we've got to find a way as a country to do and bring in a national pharmacare plan that will take, listen, my entire life, I've had no real need for medication. Been fortunate. I haven't been sick. I don't need to take a medication, but I've had coverage from the workplace plan that I've had. There are millions of Canadians don't have that luxury of having a workplace plan where they can actually go and get their medication. And I understand very much so what people are struggling with. I think yesterday it was a missed opportunity in the budget, and I really think that people need to know very clearly. One thing we have done and we continue to do, we are not going to stop our campaign to achieve a national pharmacare plan. We believe this is achievable, and more importantly, the cost of medication for the provinces and for the federal government is not going to go down in terms of our collective purchases. The sooner we can find a national mechanism to purchase medication, but also to develop a national formula, I think we'll get to a place where we can show how we can do this in the province or equal part of it. It is important that the federal government have to partner with the province to make this happen. And of course, Hoskins in his report laid out a very clear plan of how we can get their essential medicine, which is the first part of his recommendation. And I think we're going to continue our effort. The last point I would make on this is that a lot of our members, by the way, as a result of the pandemic, who have lost their job, have been laid off, was also lost their workplace coverage because they have no access to their workplace coverage at the end of the day. So it's critical in the context. We see this as, of course, a major disappointment yesterday, and we'll continue our effort. The last point I would end, when we started our work to expand the Canada Pension Plan, it took us 9 years to get the federal government and the provinces to come together to achieve that objective. Nobody ever thought we will do that. And despite, a commitment to do so by the previous federal government, and then it failed, we finally succeed in 2016. I can say this without any hesitation. We will not stop our campaign to achieve a national pharmacare plan because we think it's fundamental to the equality of all Canadians. If you live in PEI, you should not have a different access to medication if you live in Ontario or live in British Columbia. We should all be treated the same, and the only way we're going to do this, the way is we done healthcare in the country.
Okay, thank you considerably over. Mr. Kelly, followed by Ms. Koutrakis, 5-minute rounds.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And just to begin with, I'm, as Shadow Minister for Small Business, I want to focus my questions on to some of our witnesses that have small business members that they represent. I'll maybe start with Monsieur Cote. Is it fair to say that while your members, many have been assisted by the government programs that have been designed to keep people employed and to keep businesses from immediate collapse, in assisting with expenses like rent. That most of your members would there's just no substitute for having your customers back. And would you comment on the necessity of a plan for a safe and permanent reopening of the economy?
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I have to say that my members are mostly wants to reopen as soon as possible. That's their goal, that's main goal. But obviously, they don't want to be in a mix of to have some customer getting sick inside their stores. So they will follow the rules of the public health, different public health in each provinces to reopen, and especially in Quebec, some regions are very under stress right now with a lot of COVID case. But frankly, we hope that the summer will be bringer of good news. The vaccination process is going well, but the reopening will not be as fast as the people think. There will be some adjustment along the way to get some people back and employees back.
Thank you. I'll maybe now ask Ms. Hodson to weigh in on this, and maybe in particular the issue of debt and indebtedness. You mentioned about your own business, and you've talked about the number of businesses in your industry that have closed. There seem to be there's sort of two, maybe I'd even say three kinds of debt that are going on here. There are government aid measures, which are debt and cause businesses to become indebted. There is existing credit and commercial debt that businesses take on, but there is also a lot of less well understood and tracked debt. Then you mentioned part of it, rental arrears, unpaid invoices, bills to other partners or business affiliated businesses. Could you comment on the role debt is playing in your business and the threats to recovery that debt in the business community presents?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. So everything that you mentioned, and in addition, in the fitness business, we have to lease fitness equipment. That still is in our facilities. We are still obligated to those costs. And again, we are an industry that did have to invest, and in many times that meant going into debt in order to continue to serve our customers online. So building online platforms, that may be software licensing, that is expensive licensing that is per user. But the biggest issue again that we experience in the fitness industry is the return of the consumer. When are we going to see that psychological and physical return of the consumer? And that's where our biggest loss is. So again, across Canada, facilities are losing $15,000 to $30,000 a month. Large players, to a player out of Alberta, a chain of gyms, they're using the rent subsidy. However, with the caps on it and the way that program is built, they're still on the hook for over $800,000 of additional rent every month that they are now have actually, gone into default on those rental agreements.
Okay, so even the rental assistance program won't prevent defaults on rent.
Exactly.
Wayne, with just half a minute left, I'll maybe just through you or to you.
Take whatever time you need.
Well, Wayne, I want to just let you know as chair, I'm hoping to have about 5 minutes to maybe move my motion. I hope we won't need a lengthy debate on it, but I'll do that at the end.
We will have 5 minutes after we get through the rounds.
Okay, at the end, yeah.
Ms. Kotrakis, followed by Ms. May, and then end up with Mr. Sabera. Ms. Kotrakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to all our witnesses this afternoon. My first question is to Mr. Youssouf. In yesterday's budget, Minister Freeland announced commitments to support Canadian workers, including a federal minimum wage of $15. Also investments in skilled training, and as we've heard through earlier testimony, a plan to implement early learning and childcare, as well as the extension of the emergency benefits. Can you talk about how crucial these are to both Canadian workers and the economic recovery, and what you've heard through your membership?
Well, I think, as you know, we're still in the pandemic. There's thousands of Canadians that yet to go back to work and may not have a job to go back to when this pandemic is over. So all of these measures was announced yesterday is going to be critical. The $15 minimum wage is something that's really important in the federal jurisdiction to provide leadership at a national level. But equally, there's a lot of workers who work in the federal jurisdiction that will benefit from this. A good number of them work at airports across the country, have been struggling, of course, working for employer. As you know, we didn't have a federal minimum wage in the code. And this is, of course, I think, foundational for billing forward is indexed to inflation, and we can debate that, but I think this is really important. B certainly has been campaigning in the CLC for quite some time to establish a national minimum wage. I think on the extension of the other program, the CERB, and the extension of benefits going forward is critical, that workers are able to access benefits on a continuous basis. And again, I know there's a recognition that this pandemic may not be over in September, so we may have to look at those benefits again. There's a lot of course, Canadians would have been in abject poverty had we not had those benefits to begin with to support these families and individuals. And it's critical that we recognize those reality as we're going forward. The training program is going to give a lot of workers, again, who have been laid off, likely to know they may not be going back to their job. It'd be good that they can start accessing training for them to, of course, gain additional skills so they can hopefully improve their job market capacity, and of course an opportunity that may come in some new form if they have new skills. There's also some training recognition for young people that's in the budget, which is very critical. As you know, from the 2008 recession, it took young people a good part of almost 8 to 9 years for them to get out of the double-digit unemployment. The measures that was announced yesterday, I think, are really important, and we're going to need to connect young people to be able to access those training in the apprenticeship program that we can help give them a bright future and going forward. So most of the measures of this announced yesterday, obviously, we're supportive of. We recognize these will be critical to give workers some certainty. They know they're not going to lose their benefit overnight, but the critical part is for us to, of course, inoculate Canadians, and more importantly, to get the spread of the virus under control so we can reopen the economy. There's nothing like having a real job to go to, and I think it'll give people fulfillment. But also, I think some of the investment in infrastructure are critical to the kind of candidate we can meet to meet our climate change challenge. I like very much the retrofitting announcement for businesses and for homes is really going to create a lot of jobs, and of course, will help families, of course, do their part to, of course, deal with climate change challenges going forward, but equally reducing their heating bills going forward.
Thank you for that. La prochaine question est pour Monsieur Cote.
My next question is for Mr. Cote. Mr. Cote, the 2021 budget has a new hiring program for the Canada's economic recovery. This is for employees who continue to see their revenues decrease. How will this program help retailers hire new employees? We need to ensure that there is some income coming in so that you can offer good conditions to employees. Retailers, particularly at the store level, have a volatile situation, and so they're all going to be competing amongst each other, but the subsidy will help us to keep some employees that are competent, so that might help retailers over the next few months. How quickly will this program be introduced, and when will it be phased out? And will it be tied into the reduction in cases? That's all going to be something that'll be interesting. The Bank of Canada has talked about the rise of consumption during the pandemic. Are you expecting to see a significant increase in consumer behavior at the retail level once the pandemic restrictions are removed? And how will that be of benefit to your members? Yes, savings are very high amongst consumers. So even the forecasters are expecting that once possible, people will be in a buy move. The retailers, especially the hardware sector, have had some very good months. But nevertheless, there are other sectors such as clothing and fashion. They're in more serious trouble. And they're expecting that when people go back to buying, that these are the people who are going to really be able to benefit. Do I have any more time to ask a further question?
Overtime, sorry, Annie. We'll turn to Ms. May for a couple of questions, and then Mr. Sabara, and then we'll go to Pat's motion. Ms.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the generosity of the members of the committee for giving me some time. I want to ask my first question to Ms. Clements. I'm island to island. I'm on Vancouver Island, and the feedback from tourism operators and coach bus operators is very similar to your reaction to yesterday's budget. So I specifically wanted to ask you about looking at the budget, knowing and completely agreeing with every word you said about the precarious situation of the tourism sector, coach bus lines, big attractions. In my area, Butchart Gardens is an example. With $500 million announced in yesterday's budget as specific tourism relief money, and $100 million for Destination Canada to market Canada more. The response in my area is, what are they going to market if our attractions have gone out of business? I just want to get your sense of whether the budget from yesterday helps your sector. What more do we need to do?
Thank you. I think, we were happy to see the Destination Canada funding. I think it's important to have that component, but you're right. It's what will we have and what's the supply chain left that really gets through and survives this pandemic. The $500 million, again, sounds great, but when you're spreading it across the country, how will that be allocated? Prince Edward Island, for example, tourism is a huge industry here. So how will that money be allocated throughout the provinces and throughout each of the regions is a question that we have. And we heard about the Canada Recovery Hiring Program. I don't know all the details of that, but from a seasonal industry, I don't know that will benefit us as much as it may for some of the other sectors. So I think, we were hoping the wage subsidy wouldn't be on that declining scale. I think that was a big disappointment for us. And I've talked to a number of our operators for saying, we're really not out of this pandemic yet. We're facing the third wave. And again, Atlantic Canada has been relatively safe in comparison to some of the other areas, but we're not out of this either. We still have a lot of restrictions in place. And if our operators are seeing 60, 70, 80% decline in their business, and that wage subsidy is down to maybe 20%, as opposed to the 75 that we were seeing before, a lot of our operators are contemplating not opening this year again.
Thank you. If I have time, I'll quickly go
Go ahead.
To Mr. Youssef. You didn't speak to it in your testimony. You sure could have, for the amazing work you did on the just transition work that you did under the mandate from former Environment Minister Catherine McKenna on how to address just transition so that fossil fuel workers aren't left behind. I wonder if you just want to share with the committee what might be, what should have been in the budget, what we should keep pushing for to make sure that those workers are well employed well into the future.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for recognizing that work we think is foundational in regard to the challenges we will deal with going forward with workers who are going to need to be acknowledged, and the communities, not just the workers, but the communities that's going to be transitioning in of course, in sectors across the country. They were, as you know, when we started the task force, we were, the government had seeded our work with $36 million. And then subsequently in the 2019 budget, the former finance minister did, of course, allocate another $150 million for transitional measures to those communities going to be impacted by the coal phase out. Of course, we recognize there's some other things that we had recommended in that report that need to be followed up with. And one of them, of course, which we're pursuing with the government, is a just transition piece of legislation that will lay out in very concrete terms what are the conditions the workers would be assured of should they lose their job and they have to transition, training, auditing of their skills, of course, ability to move if they choose, ability to retire. I think this will be very helpful because we recognize as a movement climate change is real, and fundamentally there are going to be some challenges and disruption to certain work that we're doing in the country. We're hopeful, of course, with the Just Transition Act, we can lead the way as a country as how we can give workers assurances that we envision them with having a future, both for themselves and their family, but also we want to help the community not lose sight of the fact that they're not going to get additional resources to attract other investment when they're losing certain investment in a certain sector. The one thing I would end on, there was one community in Alberta where we went where the coal plants were being phased out and the coal mines was going to be shut down. They were going to lose 400 jobs in the coal industry. Today, they've actually attracted 2,000 jobs in that community, because the work they're doing, working at the local level, to ensure that, of course, their community was not going to be totally disrupted as a result of the transition that's going on with coal in their community. So there's some more recommendations in that our task force report to be implemented, and we're going to pursue with the government the need to bring in a just transition legislation to help workers deal with their future.
Okay, thank you both,
Excellent.
Mr.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, you're out of time, Elizabeth. Mr. Sabera, you'll have to wrap it up, and then we'll go to Pat's motion.
Thank you, Chair. Always a pleasure to be under your tutelage on this Finance Committee that you lead so elegantly and eloquently, as always. Just a quick comment, and I just have one question for Ms. Hodson, because you are the entrepreneur here on the panel, and in the city that I'm home to and the riding I represent, we have about 13,000 SMEs here. And I work in a plaza, and I know my restaurant, my bakery shop, the tailor next door, the dry cleaner, and I know how hard they work and how much they've been impacted this pandemic. I'll get there. To Mr. Youssef, I hope I was very happy to see in the budget hopefully the end to contract flipping at the airport. That was something that I had brought up in the first term of Parliament. So I look forward to seeing that legislation there, Mr. Youssef. So I'm very happy there. To Ms. Clements, your sector was the first in and it's going to be the last out. So as we have in accounting, LIFO and FIFO, you can make your acronym there. And I hope as the vaccine rollout continues, that we can start reopening those routes and get especially those regional routes out to PEI and so forth, and get tourists out there. To Ms. Hodson, as an entrepreneur, this has been a very excruciating time for you and for many people. But we have extended a number of programs to assist businesses, and the numbers speak for themselves in the CEBA and stuff. Can you speak to some of the programs that have worked well for the sector? I know my riding's home to a lot of fitness, single entrepreneur people, one person, one individual entrepreneurs. Can you speak to some of the programs that have worked well for your sector and for small businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Sabero. So absolutely, the wage and rent subsidies have been the most critical programs for our industry. They're in the very beginning of the pandemic, we were negotiating strong with landlords, and as the Fitness Industry Council of Canada, we had all of our facilities on massive Zoom calls, all figuring out how do we negotiate with landlords, and a lot of that has been through rent abatement, and so there is upcoming costs that will kind of hit our books and hit our bank accounts, but in general, the wage subsidy for the people that we have been able to maintain employment for has been extremely helpful. And, our facilities, whether they're smaller boutique facilities or large 30,000 square foot facilities, they have been very helpful. But there are, of course, limitations to all of it. And anecdotally, it feels like they're going to work for a lot of different types of businesses. But then, sometimes, and again, in the fitness industry, as a thriving industry entering this pandemic, we had fitness businesses opening in the tens and hundreds across this country on a month-to-month basis. And, those businesses that were new, the majority of them have closed. I have personally had to close 4 of our locations. They were all the newest and youngest of our locations that were opened the 12 months prior to the pandemic starting. So programs have been great. The limitations to them have made it so that there are groups even within our industry who cannot benefit. But the economic burden that our industry has to reopen is almost unsurmountable.
Thank you.
Okay, we will have to leave it there. Thank you all to the witnesses. You can stay. You're welcome to stay, but we do have a hard stop at 6 o'clock Ottawa time.
Love you dearly, Wayne, but I have to go.
Okay. Look, thank you very much to all the witnesses. This has been a very constructive criticism, some great ideas. That's what we appreciate at this committee. So thank each and every one of you. Over to you, Pat, if you want to read your motion. I don't have it directly in front of me. So thank you all.
I'm happy to read it, but I'm going to first just note that the clerk had been in touch with me based on feedback from the two the organizations that we've invited, and it had been recommended to me that if I can do so, I guess by way of friendly amendment, meaning consent, I guess, that I substitute a couple of individual names, and so I'll maybe read the motion the way I wish to, incorporating those two changes suggested by the clerk, and that the committee hold 1 3-hour meeting consisting of 2 1.5-hour panels, including Andrew Cohen and Michelle Tremblay of the CMHC in one panel, and Paul Kershaw of Generation Squeeze and Charlie Ursel of Watershed Partners in the second panel to testify about the study entitled Wealth and the Problem of Housing Inequality Across Generations in Canada, and that opening statements for the meeting be limited to 5 minutes per panel. So I'm substituting Michelle Tremblay and Paul Kershaw for Stefan Jones and Eric Swanson for those that are reading from the motion on notice. So if I may move it as read, I do so, and that's all I have to say. I don't wish to make an argument in favor of it. Just perhaps put it to a vote.
Okay, I do. Is there? I guess I would ask you, Pat. Is there some of those witnesses had been invited, I believe, Mr. Clerk, and they declined. I don't think it was a firm decline. It was a matter of timing.
Indeed, it was.
Could they be brought in under the study we're doing, or not? Like I would doubt if anybody has a problem with inviting them as witnesses under the current study. If there's a way of doing it under this study, I think the invitation that went out and the declines that happened was not a matter of not coming on that topic. I think it was just they couldn't do it at that time. Clerk could respond probably better than I on that. Would that accommodate if there was agreement on those witnesses to bring them in, to try and bring them in? Would that accommodate your request?
Are you asking me or the clerk?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Oh, okay, I thought you were asking the clerk to comment. Well, we had invited all of these witnesses, and we're not successful in having a meeting on it, and so I formed this into a motion, so that's why we're here. I do understand, if I understand the clerk who spoke to, at least to it sounds like to Paul Kershaw as one of the witnesses that he is now willing to appear, but had declined before, and perhaps there was the witnesses weren't quite so clear on exactly why we were calling them. Maybe that was part of it. I don't know, but the motion is pretty clear on who we want, and that we want 2 panels of an hour and a half each. And so either way, whether it be considered a separate study or not, it doesn't matter to me a whole lot, but I would like to hold this meeting at the next available 3-hour session that we have, which is not this Thursday, unfortunately, but if we could get maybe Tuesday as a 3-hour session, these witnesses know that we would like them, and hopefully we can just one way or another get these witnesses here for the session.
Yeah. Okay. I can open it up for debate. We are at the hour we do have to end. I understand. I believe we got a dead stop Mr. Clerk. And I see several people want to get into a debate on this motion. I wonder, could Pat, the clerk, communicate with these witnesses and see if they could come in on a regular panel? Like if we open up another study, we have to do a separate report. That's what I'm a little worried about. I don't mind, and it's up to the committee what they want to do. I see Julie's hands up, Peter hands up. Mr. Clerk, what's our time frame here?
I'd have to check with the services to see what the hard stop is. I would assume 6:30, but I need to talk to them first.
Okay, talk to them, and I'll we'll open it up for debate. I think we could at least invite them on this study, but I'll go to Ms. Zerowitz first, and then Mr. Julian, and then go from there. And then we'll have to go to a vote. Motion's on the floor in any event. You're muted,
Mr. Chair.
Julie.
I think the clerk was trying to give some input into this discussion. He kind of was giving the finger signal there. I didn't know if he had something to offer before I made my comment.
Okay, Alexander.
Thank you very much, Ms. Derowitz. The only thing I wanted to say was that we can no longer have any extensions on our committee meetings, which means that we will not be able to have 3-hour meetings in the future, just because the Senate has started sitting. I informed the chair about this, and so if we are waiting for a 3-hour meeting for next week, next Thursday, or whenever, it's not going to happen. The last 3-hour meeting we have is this Thursday in 2 days.
Okay, so that makes us 2 hours, Pat.
Okay, but you said at the outset of this meeting that we cannot meet for 3 hours. We have because of the vote. I mean, given the voting.
No, just don't miss. I might have misspoke. This Thursday, we do have a scheduled 3-hour meeting, but the vote is probably going to disrupt that. Following from there, due to the Senate committees meeting and so on, I'm told that we can only have 2-hour meetings. And that's why the governor, the Bank of Canada, and the PBO is limited to 1 hour each rather than our normal 1.5.
Okay. Well, my motion is on the basis of a 3-hour meeting. I think I'd want 2 1.5-hour panels. I'd be willing to spread the 2 1.5 panels over 2 consecutive meetings. But I think we're going to need more than a 2-hour committee meeting for this.
Okay, well let's start to debate the motion, and the clerk will tell us when we have to stop. We have a dead stop for other committees, I understand. So we'll go to Ms. Zerowitz and then Mr. Julian. And Mr. Clerk, you interrupt whenever you got the information.
Mm-hmm. Yes, just give us a signal. So, Mr. Kelly, I have no problems with any of the names that you've listed. I wonder if you would be amenable that all of them are re-invited to this session that we have right now. And if for some reason they are not able to, that the chair's not able to actually sort of book them in, that we revisit your motion. So I'm just for, in terms of expediency, in terms of getting them in terms of hearing from them, in terms of just the facilitation of the report, I wonder if you would be amenable to that. So the chair tries to schedule these witnesses as part of our current study, and we'll return to the motion if for some reason that's not possible. Would you be amenable to that?
I would be amenable on the understanding that this be the next and within the constraints that I've just heard. I mean, I wonder if even this Thursday, within the limitations of the vote, if we could somehow get to a 3-hour meeting. I mean, we don't need a 30-minute bell to get us to the chamber. We do need some time to perhaps log off of a device and log on to a vote if you can't have two open at once. But I mean, I would be open to this Thursday. It sounds like the clerk's been in touch with our witnesses on this already, so they're waiting for it. If we think we can get all four of these witnesses here on Thursday, I guess I'd be amenable to trying to make this work within the time constraints we have with the vote. That would be, maybe that's the most reasonable.
Clerk would have to respond to this, but I believe.
Are we able to? Can we fit that in?
There's a number of witnesses invited already for a Thursday. I don't know how many have accepted. Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, I know, is one, etc. So I don't know how many have accepted, and the clerk will have to give us that information. He can think about that for a minute and give it to us. Mr. Julian, followed by Mr. Fragaskatis.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I don't think this is a problem. Even if we're doing 2-hour meetings, we could do an hour and a half this Thursday. We could do an hour and a half next week as well. And we also have committee business. There are other things that would certainly fill that extra half hour, including looking to the initial draft of the COVID spending report, for example. So I think I'll be supportive of the motion, and I think it's very much doable, even with the time frame that we're talking about, even with votes on Thursday night. We can do the first hour and a half this week, the second hour and a half next week.
Okay, Mr. Fragaskatis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. I fail to see how a new study makes any sense here. It is not efficient. It does not lend itself to our work plan. To Mr. Kelly, we've heard now that a 3-hour meeting is not going to be possible. Now, I want to be cooperative, so I won't suggest that the chair look at the motion and determine whether or not it's in order or out of order. But I put to you the following, that we look at what's been suggested in terms of allowing the clerk to reach out to witnesses. I think they would be, as we heard before, open to coming. It was a scheduling issue that prevented them from coming. Let's invite them. Let's keep them as part of the regular study. I would support that. But otherwise, I think we have real questions, Chair, about whether or not the motion is in order, because as it's phrased, it is calling for a 3-hour meeting, which, as we've seen, is not possible. So I think as a compromise, Pat, I want to work with you here. Let's hear from the witnesses that you want to invite, but let's have them come as part of our existing study and invite them that way.
That is fair enough, and in particular when we've got this obstacle for the vote this Thursday. So I'm willing to, I guess, go with the suggestion. I think really that goes to Ms. Zerowitz's point that I'll hold this motion in abeyance for now, and the hopes that we just simply can accommodate with our schedule and get all these witnesses, if not in one day of 2 1.5 hour sessions, let's get them in 2 consecutive meetings and hear these witnesses.
So could we just, where are we at on this Thursday, Alexander? We do have this Thursday. Would it be possible to manage one of those? I don't know who's accepted and who hasn't, and I know you have problems getting these headsets out and so on time. Would it be possible to take some time to group who you have accepted now in 1.5 hour session, and pull who we can from these folks in the other, if they're willing to do it?
Well, we had a a 3-hour meeting with 2 panels, and all the witnesses except for the conservative witnesses have accepted. So the panels are all full except for the 4 spots reserved for the conservatives, which one of the spots was the Fraser Institute, who haven't responded yet. But I know that most of the 3 witnesses, the organizations that are mentioned in the motion, are most likely in agreeing to come on Thursday this week, because I've been in contact with them earlier this week. So they already know that this is coming.
Okay, then we kind of hate to break that commitment to them. I wonder, could we then agree at this point, and maybe I don't know, whoever's in contact with these folks from the conservative side, Kelly or Pat, could they maybe talk to them to see if they would accept coming in, maybe at a meeting next week or thereabouts, to see if there's any way we can get them in. We seem to be having witnesses decline, and I don't know what the reasons are.
Okay, I'm a little confused though now, because it sounds like if the clerk's got more witness, if you've got the 4 witnesses from my motion, all if you're in contact with them and they're all ready, willing to come on Thursday, but you've also got other witnesses that you've invited as I don't know, a backup or concurrently invited. It sounds like we got too many people coming on Thursday.
We'll go to Alexander on that then, because I'm not sure. The list I have for Thursday, I have both panels here of the invited witnesses, and there was 2 from the Fraser Institute, Fred McMahon and Stephen Globerman. And you're saying, Alexander, they've declined at this stage? But them aren't the 2 names you named, are they?
No. No, I'm looking for CMHC, Generation Squeeze, and Watershed Partners. So
okay.
Those are the ones in my motion.
Well, then we'll go to, we'll ask the clerk to clear this up if you could, Alexander.
Yeah, so the way it works is that during a 1.5 hour panel, we have 6 witnesses, 2 Liberals, 2 Conservatives, 1 Bloc, and 1 NDP. That means that in a 3-hour panel, we have 4 witnesses for the Conservatives, and they're per organization, not per direct person. So we had the Fraser Institute, which is 1, but you still have 3. So we had the CMHC, which is 1, and then you had Generation Squeeze, which is the 3rd, and then you had Watershed Partners, which is the 4th. So we are able to accommodate the 4 witnesses from the Conservative Party, no matter how many people they send per organization. Does that make sense?
Right. My motion really envisioned the having 2 dedicated panels to these witnesses. So I mean, I'm inclined to allow this to go to a vote, and if it's the will of the committee to support this motion, then I'd like to go ahead with it.
It would have to be rewritten a little, given the 3 hours. I think could we do it this way, Pat? I think we have a meeting scheduled for the steering committee is meeting on Monday night. Could we try and sort this out at that time? Or is that the immaterial to me? We can vote on it now.
All right. I mean, we're left with the problem of this Thursday and not really being able to truly accommodate a 3-hour meeting anyway on Thursday. So, yes, I can hold the motion back and bring it to our.
Je pourrais peut-être le présenter au comité directeur. Mais si.
And potentially would be part of a panel on Thursday. I don't really want to delay hearing these witnesses. I'd like to get these witnesses to committee one way or another.
Okay, then just I'm a little confused now. If any of these witnesses have been invited on Thursday, that invitation still stands, I think, okay. Mr. Clerk. if there's room to bring them in, or certain witnesses have declined, we can handle 6 per panel. So let's try that. We'll find out what we're left with, and we will deal with it at steering committee on Monday. And you can always the motion, you can pull it up again, and we'll have to vote on it.
Okay.
Are we okay with that?
Yep. That's fair enough.
Okay. All right. Thank you, folks. And we will adjourn the meeting, and we shall see everyone on. I don't even know what day it is. Today's Tuesday. We'll see everyone on Thursday.
Thursday. Okay.
Meeting adjourned. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.